One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
There was a conference. What was it? Turning Point USA. How many kids were there? And there 3,000 student activists here it was actually over at West Palm Beach. And this is a group that has been put together and operates under the auspices of Charlie Kirk, right? Who is you're going to be hearing that name if you haven't. Charlie Kirk. Let me just tell you. I don't want to jinx him, but I'm just going to tell you. They brought Charlie Kirk to the golf course to meet me about a month ago. He was in town to set up this Turning Point thing, and they brought him to the golf course to meet me. It was we were getting ready for a 8:45 a.m. start, and they brought him out while I was getting ready to go to the range to loosen up. And I spoke with him for about a half hour, and he told me how he grew up in a home where my program was on all the time. He was just effusively complimentary to me, which I, of course, understood and told him he's very wise. His family's very wise. He chuckled. He laughed. This is the kind of guy that you can see really becoming big in politics as he gets older. He just has the carriage, the personality, the charisma. You may think this sounds weird, but I remember when Bill Clinton became president, there were all of these stories about Bill Clinton at Oxford and Bill Clinton at Yale and Bill Clinton here and all these people who went to school with him. There was story after story after story where people were saying that they just knew Bill Clinton was going to be president someday. In college, he just had that kind of ambition, and he impressed people in a way that he could. I'm telling you that people are saying the same things about Charlie Kirk.
All right, so all I can say right now is you're winning. You are winning big. You're winning extremely big. Do not stop. Keep going.
Breaking news into the Fanfare newsfeed.
Okay, if you haven't heard, here we go. ABC has pulled the plug on Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely, which means a long time, after Nexstar backlash to host Charlie Kirk's comments. I'm going to show you what Nexstar is in a second, but let's go through this article here. Remove the ad. Disney's ABC said it would take Jimmy Kimmel's popular late night show off of its schedule indefinitely after one of the biggest owners of TV stations in the United States, Nexstar Media, said it would preempt airings of the program following remarks the host made about the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. It must have just hurt to the core for Variety magazine to put this on their website. Nexstar said Wednesday that its owned and partnered television stations affiliated with the ABC network will preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's show. He's off the air as of tonight. The company said it strongly objects to recent comments made by Kimmel concerning the death of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other program in its ABC affiliated markets. And then they went, that was all they had to say. That's all they needed to say. That's all they needed to say. I don't understand, and I'm trying to wrap my arms around it, but I don't understand how anybody can't think that this man's death is not globally impactful. Jimmy Kimmel is gone. Jimmy Kimmel will, of all the people we've seen over the last, 6 days who've been fired, this one is a big one. Big one.
I'm sorry, you're fired. Get out of here.
Oh my God. I shouldn't say he's fired. He's indefinitely off the air. That's fired. That's pretty much fired. This was from Nexstar, the affiliate that controls all these stations. It says, breaking news, Nexstar, an official ABC broadcast affiliate, is removing Jimmy Kimmel from its 32 ABC stations until Disney addresses Kimmel's attack on Kirk. Now, this is what preceded everything. This one group of affiliates said, we are not going to run any more of Jimmy Kimmel's show for the foreseeable future. And then Disney pulled the plug ABC on the entire thing. Here's their press release. Nexstar today announced that the company's owned and partner television stations affiliated with the ABC television network would preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's show, as I said. Nexstar strongly objects to the recent comments made by Kimmel concerning the death of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other programming in its ABC affiliated markets. That's what Variety is. They didn't tell you the next paragraph. The next paragraph explains well how they feel about it. Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse. And we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which they are located. That's monstrous. President of Nexstar Broadcasting Division, continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time, and we have made the difficult decision to preempt this show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. What you're seeing is a massive reaction. What you're seeing is what you've been doing. I'm sure if you're one of the people out there hitting up Twitter, X rather, Facebook, letting people know we are mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. You've seen countless people fired. And now it's starting to hit the big leagues. And it's freaking the Democrats out. I'm going to show you something in a second because now they're all worried. Oh my God, what about free speech? No, I don't have to deal with your free speech. That's the government. From the government. The guy we had on our show last week was Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr is the director of the FCC. Brendan says, I want to thank Nexstar for doing the right thing. Local broadcasters have an obligation to serve the public interest. While this may be an unprecedented decision, It's important for broadcasters to push back on Disney programming that they determine falls short of community values. I hope that other broadcasters follow Nexstar's lead. So Brendan Carr is saying this might not be the end. I don't know what kind of back channel stuff has been going on, but they're not going to take this crap. Right now, MSNBC, CNN, CBS, ABC have got to be pooping their pants. You already know that President Trump is suing the New York Times for $15 billion. The media, he's going after them. They can't do anything but scream on television and say, oh, they're attacking the media. No more. But don't for an instant think these people are going to lay down. They still are going to continue to fight. You watch. I'm going to show you some things. What's the next one I wanted to show? Oh, Megyn Kelly, who used to be on Broadcast News, says, just think for a minute about the amount of irate email and mail and viewer feedback they must have received in order to do that. This didn't happen in a vacuum. This is you continuing to voice your opinion. There's nothing they can do about it. Listen what this guy said, Robert Garcia, and just look at Erin Burnett. You can tell she's freaked out here.
When you see that Jimmy Kimmel is gone because of that, does that even hit harder home to you?
Look, I'm honestly, this is very concerning. I think, first, Jimmy Kimmel is a late night host. He's a comedian. We have the First Amendment in this country. Folks have the right to say what's on their minds, and certainly in a monologue on a late night show.
See, that's the same thing they keep talking about. You have the right, you have free speech. No, you don't. That's between the government. Free speech is the government shall not infringe upon it. It has nothing to do with an employer saying, we don't want it. And I can tell you, and many of you guys can probably verify this on your own, you can go, if you're still working, pull up your employee handbook. Pull up your employee handbook and look to the chapter that says social media and digital networks. Pull it up. Look at it yourself. You probably signed it and maybe didn't read the entire thing, but it says clearly in almost every handbook, employee handbook right now, there is no line. You're not off duty. You don't have that personal. You still reflect upon the company. And the wording that Brendan Carr used is very important because it's the exact same wording. Okay, well, let me show you this to you. The wording that he used right here. It is important for broadcasters to push back on programming that they determine falls short of community values. You have an obligation to serve the public interest. And notice what Nexstar said in their letter. They specifically say that same thing. Right there. Continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest. That's very key because they are basically honing in on the ability to do what they've done. You guys are winning. You're out there winning. Let's continue to listen to these people cry.
I think anyone that's going to listen and watch that clip, I mean, it's pretty clear that this is a direct attack on free speech. And it's one thing for all of us to unite and talk about political violence and denouncing political violence. It's another now to target people who you may not agree their opinion with or that you don't like what they have to say. What's happening right now in these attacks on universities, attacks on people in their job because we don't like what they say or we're policing every word. This is an extreme example now and another direct attack on the media. And I think one thing is important to be said at this moment. Yeah. Donald Trump has been, in a systematic way, attacking the media, causing harm, impacting the way people believe and interact with news gathering, what people are saying. And he continues and continues to tear media and media institutions down.
The problem that these people are going to have, people like CNN, I got another video from CNN, the problem that they're going to have is you're talking to the choir. Nobody on our side feels sorry for them whatsoever. You have caused this yourself. You have brought every bit of this disdain on yourselves. You have treated us on the right like crap and gotten away with it for years. And now you can't understand how we're fighting back and why the president didn't do anything. Notice he mentioned Trump. That's the actual business that did it. Disney pulled the plug. Disney is the one who said, we don't want him. Here's some more lamenting on CNN. Thanks, SV.
Go ahead.
I'm interested because are they sending everyone home? You know, what's happening on the scene? You know, the show would have been taping within the next hour. So people would be there. Yes, this is very abrupt. Very abrupt.
And this is all about jawboning. It's all about public pressure. You know, actually revoking FCC licenses is extremely difficult. I wrote about this last fall when candidate Donald Trump was talking on the campaign trail about wanting to punish stations by taking away their licenses. And throughout the history of the country, ever since we've had broadcast television, license revocations are extraordinarily rare. Once you've got one, you're pretty much guaranteed to keep it. So the threat is not that the FCC is actually going to take away a license. It's about the public noise. It's about the shame and embarrassment. It's about Brendan Carr going on podcasts and embarrassing ABC. You know, there's a...
I'm sorry. Brendan Carr came on this podcast and he didn't embarrass ABC. ABC did it themselves. There is not a single person, not a single conservative that forced Jimmy Kimmel to be a complete idiot. There's not a single conservative that forced Joy Behar and the rest of the people on The View to be complete idiots. However, now that we know we have a voice, now that we know we've got these people on the run, you need to squeeze. Keep pummeling. They're going to come for you. They're not going to let up. They are going to keep coming. Right now, they're on their heels. Makes it dangerous, but you got to keep at it. You got to keep slamming them. Let these people have their wallow party themselves.
For this, it's jawboning, and that's what we've seen happen today in a very real way. Trump vowed retribution on the campaign trail, and he's getting it. He's getting it against entertainers and comedians. But Aaron, for every reaction, there is a counter reaction. Stephen Colbert has already been joking about getting hired somewhere else. Those jokes mask a very real intention, right? Where will he get picked up instead? If Kimmel parts ways with ABC, and again, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Kimmel's contract is coming due soon. Kimmel will probably end up somewhere else. And if big, old-fashioned
So he thinks they're just going to jump ship. So let me ask you a question. Kimmel is on ABC. Colbert is on CBS. If CBS doesn't want Colbert, what the hell makes you think they're going to take Kimmel? If ABC already has a problem with Kimmel, what makes you think CBS is going to get back into that? These people are delusional. They're speaking right now off the cuff because they are absolutely freaking out. They cannot take it. They can't understand how is this even happening? And it's only happening for two reasons. One, Elon Musk bought X, and two, Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. You really, really made one of the biggest mistakes ever. Not because he was killed, but because of your reaction to it. Because you won't unify. Because you won't even talk to us. You killed a man because he was speaking. And ever since then, you've done everything possible but say you're wrong. It's our fault. I'm going to show you some stuff from Obama as well. It's our fault, eh? It's always our fault. How about looking in the mirror and realizing nobody wants the crap you're peddling? And the advertisers definitely don't want to see people glorifying assassinations. So you did this to yourself, all of them.
Media companies don't have the guts to employ these people, then we're going to see startups start to flourish. You know, we talk about the Substack era with people launching newsletters and live streams on YouTube. We're going to see more of that if these old-fashioned media companies can't stand a little bit of pressure from the president.
Yeah, well,
if you look closely at some of the people who have been, cast aside, that so-called startups, not working for them. Joy Reid, nope. Don Lemon, a little bit sometimes. Who's the other ones? They're all trying it. Nobody wants to listen to your crap. You've had fake audiences. They don't realize that because CNN is on in every doggone airport across the country and that their ratings are fluffed up, that they really think they have an audience. They don't. Nobody wants to hear your crap. The reality of the situation that they're in is why they're freaking out. If they can't keep the big pharma money, if they can't keep the airport money, who's going to pay all these salaries? Because advertisers are like, yeah, you people are wrong.
I mean, but it is stunning to see such a thing happen and to show this world that we're living in. Van Jones is joining me now on the phone. So, Van, all of a sudden you see this headline, Jimmy Kimmel put on hold indefinitely by ABC News after the head of the FCC goes on a far-right podcast and says we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And do you think in your mind it's possible this might not be real?
I don't know what's real or what's not real. I do know that a news organization anywhere in the world has a responsibility to stand up to government bullying, to government censorship. That is what we do. That is why we exist. Not to knuckle under, not to do what we're told, but to stand up and to say, listen, if you want to pull these licenses, then we're going to go to court. And we'll be in the court of public opinion, but you don't.
You've already lost. That's what you don't understand. You've already lost the court of public opinion. You lost the court of public opinion a long time ago. You've been forced upon us. Most of the people here won't even tune in CNN or MSN. Most of the nation won't. You've lost the court of public opinion. It doesn't exist for you. Wake up, Van. Smell the roses. This is just the end result of everything you've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And now you guys are like, well, we're going to win the court. No, you've already lost that. What are you going to do? An employer has the right. Remember when they told you when Twitter was kicking people off the networks and they said specifically, well, they're a private company. They can do whatever they want. Pretty sure that was said over and over and over again. They're a private company. They can make whatever decisions they want to. There are a number of clauses in a corporate contract. And one of those I said was digital, social. There's another one called moral turpitude. Look up the term moral turpitude. That is in a contract. It's even in some sports contracts. They're not going to keep paying you if you piss off the population that's supposed to be watching you. See, one thing CEOs do well is guard the bottom line. They didn't seem to be guarding the bottom line before. That was because they were getting paid. Everything from USAID to whoever was, basically had their thumb on the scales, giving them money. Just keep hammering Trump. Just keep saying whatever you want to say. Their court case would be hard pressed to win because of the volume of information we all have that to go in and go, well, here's what they've been doing for the last couple of years. Lying about everything. Everything. Russia hoax. You can name it. All these different things they have been lying about. And now they're freaking out because they must realize it too. They're not stupid people. It's funny to me that getting Van Jones on the phone, the first thing he says they can do is we got to fight in court. That means you've already lost the ability to negotiate. That means the companies basically are right, and you're hoping to get one of these softy, lefty judges to back you up.
Get you go on a podcast and set policy for American media, for an American media institution that's been around a lot longer than me, you, or Donald Trump. This is a red line that has been crossed for our industry, for the First Amendment, for the right of people to speak. There was nothing hateful about what was said, and even hateful speech is protected. This is not acceptable. If you are going to run a media organization that's called a news organization, you have to stand up to government bullying anywhere in the world, and certainly in the United States.
Why didn't you stand up to it to Biden? When they told you you couldn't say this or couldn't say that, why didn't you stand up then? Why is it now? And you're saying this wasn't hateful? By whose measurement are you determining that? I'm pretty sure there are tens of millions of people who find what Jimmy Kimmel said quite offensive. So they can't even analyze this situation correctly because the glasses and lens from which they're going to be seeing this, it's just a circular firing squad. They're all going to get together and decide what. Nobody cares. The inmates are no longer running the asylum. That's the problem. I don't care what Rachel Maddow says. She's one person. I don't care what Aaron Burnett says. I don't care what Van Jones says. I do care, if I'm the CEO, what tens of millions of people care about. See, that's just one person. You're replaceable. You're not that good. You're not a Hall of Famer. I can replace you. And I think what's going on right now is they are realizing they're up the creek. No paddles.
Well, the job should be to, speak truth to power, even when there are people who don't like the word truth anymore. All right, Vance, stay with us. I want to bring in the Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia because he is the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. And Congressman, I appreciate your time. We had planned to talk about something very different and obviously
So we just heard him obviously screaming and whining and moaning. So let me fast forward past that because I don't know at all what they can possibly do legally, but at the same time, I can tell you they're not going away. Was he the end of the show? He was the end of that segment. All right, good. All right, so that's where we are with that. Let me just show you how I know these people aren't going away. This is how I know these people aren't going away. I want you to see something. Charlie Kirk was taken out 1 week ago today. Here's what Hillary Clinton posted today. Congratulations to my friend Randy Weingarten on why fascists fear teachers. From banning books to controlling curriculum, authoritarians go after public education because it's cornerstone of democracy. She's promoting a book calling other people fascist. A week after Charlie Kirk was murdered. She's promoting a book about being fascist and authoritarian. Right back to the playbook. So let me tell you what's going to happen here because I want to make sure my timing is on. We're going to jump over to Rumble a little bit early tonight. All right? No music. I've got some more information to share with you. But what we're going to do, got a little bit of a surprise for you. When we jump over, JD Vance is going to be on Jesse Waters' show. So I figured, let's go ahead and jump over there and hold on, let me get this right. Yeah, so there won't be any music or anything. I just wanted to spend the first half hour here on YouTube, and then we'll finish up over there. It is 7:59, so let's get ready to rumble. Real quick here, let me just make sure if there's any super chats here. I can do we'll hold on. We'll do part of the show here, and then we'll jump over. So I'm making a switch. I'm making a call here right at the beginning here, and then we'll decide once we hear it. So while we're waiting for that to come on, let me go ahead and get it ready. We'll stay here because there's a whole bunch of you guys here. I don't want to lose you. We're still live on both. Wait a second. Do I have an interview scheduled tonight? Uh-oh. I didn't even realize I have an interview. Ashley, call me if that's correct. Let me go to break here and get ready. I did not know I had an interview scheduled here. And I might be making a mistake. Hold on a second. I had something planned. I might have to move some stuff around. Hold on a second.
back to...
All right, so yes, I do have an interview at 8:30, so we'll jump over there and take the interview at 8:30. And right now, when Jesse cuts to his interview with JD Vance, we'll go ahead and take that. He's doing his intro. Well, I can let you hear the intro.
Turning Point students, JD, emotional, took us back to the moment when the White House found out Charlie was dead. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, it's good to see you.
Where were you when you heard Charlie was shot?
So I was in my office in the West Wing. The Vice President actually has a couple of offices. There's the Executive Office Building office and the West Wing office. I was in the West Wing, and I just finished a meeting with somebody. I'm not even sure who. And I looked at my phone, and there were a bunch of group chats, frankly, a lot of them that Charlie was in, where they said, Charlie, praying for your brother, hope you're doing okay. And then I opened up my door, and somebody said, Charlie's been shot. And it kind of hit me like, oh my God, this is very real. This is very serious. And, you know, what happened over the next hour or so, I'm guessing, is, you know, we knew Charlie. It's called your body guy, your special assistant, the person who's always with you. And I had a very dear friend in the West Wing who knew Charlie's body guy. And so his name is Mikey, and he called Mike and said, hey, like, what's going on? And what was really, I mean, obviously, you know, the news was discombobulated. No one knew what was actually happening. It was a very chaotic moment, but there was a brief period where we were getting good reports from the hospital. And I don't know how plugged in you were to that.
I heard those
and
too.
So, I saw the initial video. I've only seen it that one time. I refuse to watch it again. I don't want to see that happen to my friend ever again. But I initially thought, terrible, terrible news. And then I started to feel kind of hopeful. And then, of course, we got the news from Mike that Charlie had passed probably about an hour before the rest of the world found out. And I was the person who walked into the Oval Office and said, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but Charlie passed. And that was a very, very tough moment. You know, Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, was in tears, and she doesn't show emotion. You know, she is even keel the whole way, and she was in tears, and I just gave Susie a hug. And I think all of us kind of lost it, and it felt like, we were all mourning our friend before any of the politics or the thought about, you know, what a titan he was and how influential he was to the movement. How do we possibly replace him? We were all just sad because our friend had died. And we supported each other in that moment, as you do with your friends. But man, it was a bad, bad day.
When you told the president Charlie was dead, how did he take it?
You know, the president is very stoic, but he was clearly upset. He just kind of went quiet and let it absorb a little bit, and then just shook his head and said, man, he was a good guy, and we really loved him. And that's exactly right. That was a good thing to say. And we all just kind of had that same realization that he was a good friend, that he really loved what we were trying to do. He was a great supporter of ours. And it was a great honor to have him both as a friend and as a supporter. And frankly, I mean, Jesse, I would not be the Vice President of the United States were it not for Charlie Kirk. Aside from Donald Trump, I can't think of a single person who deserves more credit, who advocated more for me, both in my Senate primary back in 2021, who advocated more for me to be the nominee as vice president, who advocated more for us to get in there, not just advocacy, but effective action and organization. I wouldn't be the vice president. I wouldn't have this job without Charlie Kirk, and I'll never forget it.
Do you believe the people out in the country should watch the video? I know it's very hard to stomach.
Yeah.
Is it important for people to process it?
Look, I go back and forth on it. I mean, look, it's my friend, and it's incredibly gruesome. And what I think is maybe it's useful for everybody to see at one time, because then you see what they did to Charlie Kirk. But I don't want anybody to remember Charlie Kirk and that 5 seconds at the end of his life. I want them to remember Charlie Kirk, the skilled debater. I want him to remember those videos, those incredible videos of him and his wife and his babies, and how much he loved Erica and how much he loved those kids. I want him to remember Charlie for that. I want him to remember Charlie for the guy for when it was these kids behind me. Now, I hate to call you guys kids, but you are, you know, who would, a progressive would step up to the microphone at a Turning Points USA event, and some of the audience would jeer and cheer, and Charlie would say, no, let him speak, because he so desperately believed in this idea that we should be talking with and debating one another. So maybe see the video to understand what the far left did to Charlie Kirk, absolutely. But that should be one fraction of 1% of your memory of Charlie Kirk. 99.9% of it should be a titan of the conservative movement, a beloved friend, and a dear husband and father.
You brought the casket on Air Force Two back to Erica, his wife, to Arizona. What was that like, delivering that to her?
Oh, man, I'm going to try to keep it together here. It was a great honor. You know, as sad and as heartbreaking and as difficult as it was emotionally, I just kept on thinking, what an incredible thing it is to be able to take my friend back to Phoenix, to be able to take his wife and his family, to be able to provide some just basic support and friendship in their moment of grief. What an honor to be invited into Erica's, inner circle in that moment of terrible grief. And it was tough though, man. I mean, I've still, and I think that this is a pretty common thing when you're grieving somebody you love. I had this moment a couple of days ago where I whip out my phone, I type in Charlie Kirk on Signal, I get halfway through a text message before I realize he's not here anymore and nobody's going to receive this message. And that thing was so much more true in the 20 hours after he had died. And you could see that. I mean, I don't want to reveal too much about the conversation we had with Charlie and his family, but we were all kind of going through these hills and valleys together of, oh my God, I can't believe he's gone. But then just telling stories and laughing and hugging. And it was an amazing experience, but it was very sad. And it just gave me this sense of resolve that they put Charlie in this box. They put him in this box for doing the most American thing possible, which is debating and talking to people, even the people, maybe especially the people with whom you disagree. And we cannot let this incredible legacy get extinguished by an assassin. A couple of the people that traveled with us, it was Charlie's family, and it was his wife and his parents and his sister, all incredibly kind people. But there were also a couple of Charlie's dear friends, people who were involved in TPUSA. And you know what every single person, both in Turning Points, but also Erica said is, we cannot let this die with Charlie. That was her main wish. And of course, I've talked to her since then. I'll see her on Sunday at the funeral in Arizona. She really wants this incredible, not just mission and organization, but really a movement that Charlie Kirk built to keep on going long after he's gone. I think that's the best way that we can honor him, is to honor her wishes and to keep Charlie's memory alive.
He touched so many people, especially young people.
Yes.
And as a strong Christian, will that be part of his legacy, bringing people closer to God?
I think it has to be part of his legacy. I mean, how many people did I talk to in the last week who said, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I haven't been to church in 3 years, 3 months. I went to church this Sunday to pray for Charlie. Or how many people did I speak to who said, I was kind of an agnostic, an atheist, but I'm kind of interested in this God thing because this guy really believed that he gave his life for it. If we are true to Charlie's memory, the number one thing that people will remember about Charlie Kirk is that he was a great advocate for the Christian faith. He was thoughtful. I mean, I remember talking to Charlie, even in the last months before he died, about Catholicism and Protestantism and all of these different minutiae of the Christian faith, because I said this, he loved God, and because he loved God, he wanted to understand God. And so he was constantly thinking about it. But more importantly than that, he was constantly going out and talking about it. Like, you look at these Turning Points USA events, and you look at the interactions he was having with people, and people would say, why are you a Christian? And he would say, well, because I'm a sinner and Jesus saved me. Jesus saved my life. He wanted to be a true evangelist in the truest sense of the word, in the way that St. Paul was an evangelist. And I think that has to be part of his legacy. And I've seen just in my own inner circle, people come back to the church purely because Charlie's death caused something inside them to stir. I would love to see that happen all over our country, and I think it is.
That's why it feels like it's a spiritual attack.
Yes.
That evil showed its face. Do you believe that evil is out there and we have to confront it?
I've always believed that history makes a lot more sense when you both believe in God and follow God, but accept that the devil is real. And I think that evil is very much a real thing. It has a will. It has it has an evil and very negative purpose, but it also clearly has people who are trying to accomplish that purpose. I think in the spiritual realm, but also in the realm that we live in every single day too. So yes, I believe that one of the takeaways of Charlie's death and of Charlie's life is that speaking the truth What is the devil? What is evil if not the opposite of truth and the opposite of life? They tried to extinguish Charlie's truth and extinguish Charlie's life. We cannot let them. And that is one of the great, if you look at the 2,000 years of the Christian faith, one of the great lessons is that each of us have our role to play. Each of us have a particular part of the race to run. We each have something that we have to do, and then God calls us home, and it's on to the next man. We are all the next man in that great journey for as long as God gives us the ability to be that next man.
People are celebrating Charlie's killing.
It's disgusting.
They're saying he deserved to die. How do you wrap your head around that?
Well, one way you wrap your head around it is disgusting evil. What kind of person looks at a grieving young mother, at two beautiful young kids, and feels a certain sense of celebration? And I actually think, I don't know if it's a couple people, I don't know if it's thousands of people, but I would ask you, if you were the kind of person who feels joy at the death of a grieving mother and grieving children, what bad decisions have led you to where you are today? And why don't you get back on the right path? I really believe that there are people who recognize that the joy that they're feeling, the celebration they're feeling at Charlie's death is evidence of evil within them, and they have to extinguish that evil. I think that. And I've even seen some social media posts where people have said, you know, I was feeling kind of good about this guy dying, and now I realized that meant there was something wrong in me. That's another way I think that God is speaking to people through Charlie's death, is these incredibly evil people celebrating it. We're seeing it. We're seeing that evil in the public eye for all to see. But I also think people are turning away from that evil because they recognize that it is so opposite of everything good and true and righteous in the world.
If these evil people don't repent and continue to revel in the murder, what should be the consequence?
Well, look, I think the consequence should be, by the way, justice exists for both the people who repent and ask forgiveness. Justice also exists for people who don't repent and don't ask for forgiveness. I really do hope that the person who murdered Charlie Kirk eventually accepts that what he did was evil and terrible, but we still got to have justice anyway. And I think that for the people who are celebrating Charlie Kirk, look, we have a First Amendment in this country. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech, but if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being a disgusting person. If you're a university professor who benefits from American tax dollars, you should not be celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And if you are, maybe you should lose your job or your university should face a loss of funding. If you are the kind of person who thinks that Charlie Kirk was justifiably murdered, sometimes the government can't do anything about that. But you know what can is civil society. And I've actually been gratified to see all these people standing up and saying, yes, we have free speech, and yes, we have free debate. But if you're celebrating the death of a young father, you ought to pay some consequences for it. And the American people are rising up against that evil. It's a great thing to see.
So the Democrats in the media are preaching unity. They're saying there's an equal amount of violence on both sides, and we need to all just lower the temperature and come together. You say?
It's statistically absolutely bonkers. The idea that left-wing violence and right-wing violence in 2025 in America are equal, it's preposterous. The statistics don't bear it out, Jesse. You ask what percentage of political liberals believe that political violence is sometimes justified? It's about 1 in 4. If you ask young conservatives that same question, it's about 1 in 25, which, by the way, is still too high. Right. It should be 0, but the problem is much bigger and much more malignant on the far left. You know, I saw something, maybe it was the ADL or one of these ridiculous organizations that said that right-wing violence is as common as left-wing violence. And then you go and look at the data and you say, what is it that you're causing right-wing violence? One of the things that they called right-wing violence is literally a gang of black Americans beating up on a Mexican guy. Well, yeah, if you categorize everything under the sun as right-wing violence, you can make your point for you, but that's BS. Nobody's buying it. Look at the way they're celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. Look at the way that this assassin was radicalized by left-wing and probably trans-related stuff. Look at the way that even if you're not committing an act of violence, you are supporting those who do. You see that so much more on the far left. And I wish my friends who are on the left would just look themselves in the mirror and accept that they have a problem. Yes, absolutely. By all means, let's take down the temperature. But if you want to take down the temperature and you're on the left of center, the first and most important thing you can do is look in the mirror.
The media is now saying the assassin may have been MAGA. Why would they lie?
Well, they would lie because they can't do that simple, basic thing of looking themselves in the mirror. They can't admit that their radicalism and their craziness helped to cause this problem. Look, this is not in dispute. You talk to the shooter's mother, you talk to the shooter's father, you talk to the local district attorney, you talk to the FBI director or the deputy director of the FBI. You look at every ounce of evidence that we have, and it is clear. This is a person who grew up in a pretty normal family, actually had a pretty good home life, who was radicalized by the far left, by the social networks of the far left, by the ideas of the far left, and got so far down the path of radicalization that he killed my friend. That is not a both sides problem. My friend is dead because of left-wing political radicalization. And if you want to cut that out, then be honest about it and look yourself in the mirror. Excuse me. I know I shouldn't cuss on Fox News.
That's okay. Trans terrorism and Barack Obama. Part 2 of my exclusive interview with JD Vance. Straight ahead.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. Now we're going to jump. Ready? Get over to Rumble. We're going to finish this up over there. Get ready to rumble.